Good morning. I'm Denise Smilik, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices at this time. Also, while masks are no longer mandatory, please feel free to wear one if you believe it is required or necessary for your own well-being. We have 6 board members present this morning, and Commissioner Manzano Diaz is present by telephone. So I'd like to now call today's meeting to order. Commissioner Manzano Diaz, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I would also like to note that in addition to the 7 board members participating today, we also have our ex officio members, and Adria Zimmerman, representing Pat Brown, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, is also joining us by telephone. Adria, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. We also have George Augusto, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you, ex officios, for joining us. As the first order of business, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and join me in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, August 20th, to discuss personnel matters, pending litigation, and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. I would also like to announce that the board has scheduled the public input hearing relative to the license renewal application for Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse in Dauphin County. The hearing will be held next Wednesday, August 28th, beginning at 10:30 a.m. at the East Hanover Township Building, 8848 Jonestown Road in Grantville, Pennsylvania, 17028. The public is invited to attend and provide testimony. More details on how to sign up or submit written comments are available on the board's website. And speaking of Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse, we will now hear from that facility's license holder, Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel regarding Hollywood's petition to modify their gaming floor. I would ask if there are any non-attorneys who will be presenting evidence today in this proceeding to please stand and be sworn in by the court reporter at this time. I would also like to ask everyone who is going to speak to please state and spell your name for the court reporter prior to speaking. Hollywood, you may begin.
Okay. Chairwoman Smiler, members of the Gaming Control Board, good morning. Adrian King, A-D-R-I-A-N, King, K-I-N-G, from the Ballard Spahr Law Firm, here on behalf of the license holder, Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association. And as you know, we hold a couple of different licenses, so we're here with respect to the Category 1 license held by Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. As you have just stated, we're here for our petition to modify the gaming floor, and specifically we're going to be talking about a reduction in the number of slot machines at the facility and also reorganization of the floor. Sorry about this. Yeah, hold on. I'm going to use the mouse. Is it turn on? Great. Sorry about that. Let me just quickly let you know who's here. Tony Ferbeil, who's our Vice President General Manager of the facility. Seated next to him to his right is Alex Vizda, who's the Regional Director of Compliance. And then Michelle Collins, who is to Alex's right, and Michelle's the Vice President and Assistant Manager. We're going to break this into 2 parts. Tony is going to talk about the modification to the floor plan, the reduction, and then Alex is going to talk about just the latest with respect to skill games, and in particular in the vicinity of the property which, as you know from prior hearings, we do believe has a material effect on the casino industry on the retail side and with respect to our slot machines. So we did want to give you an update, and I think you'll see we've done some very specific research with respect to immediately around this property. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Adrian. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for hearing our petition this morning. Tony Frabiele, Tonyfrabiele, Vice President General Manager. I wanted to start off and just show a graph that shares with you the history of our property and our market as it relates to slot gaming revenues across the Commonwealth. And particularly, I think the point of 2020 where we were impacted by the COVID closures, as well as incoming capacity at the end of 2020 and into 2021 in the brick and mortar side. You saw a significant change in revenues that were going through brick and mortar properties. And when you look at 2024, this year, PNRC, our property, Penn National Racecourse, we're down to 10% over prior year. And the market at brick and mortar casinos on the slot side is down 2%. And we attribute that to the increased capacity in the marketplace with additional brick and mortar casinos, along with the growth of iCasino and unregulated skill games. As Adrian stated, we'll have more on skill games as we go forward, and we don't know exactly what those revenues are, but we can only take our best guess at what that is. So what we've been focused on is how do we best position our properties to compete in the marketplace and drive the most amount of revenue for our shareholders and for the Commonwealth. And at my previous property, the Meadows, we did a similar exercise as what we're doing here at Penn National Racecourse, which is a modification and what I call a modernization of the gaming floor. And we started this journey almost 2 years ago as we were working through the property in improving sight lines across the facility and the game experience itself as it relates to your time on device at a slot machine or a table game. And on our floor plan, you'll note that we've improved our entryways by moving smoking to the rear of the building. So if you're a non-smoking customer, you can enter any of our entryways through the facility and not have to walk through a smoking section. And so you can easily get to those sections, and that's a much smaller footprint than what the regulatory requirement is or allows us to get to. We've also been focused on making sure that customers know about our gaming offerings and what we do. We're very active on social media. In our company, we are the top property on social media with 100,000 followers. You can see there one of our highlights of pushing out jackpots. Our concert series has helped with those things. And we continue to do everything we can to promote our business and drive customers to the property, as it is one of our flagship properties inside the portfolio. We've also done a lot of reinvestment in the property since 2018. As the Gaming Act changed and allowed for sports wagering, we opened up our sports book, which is also a restaurant, and we've put over $12 million back into the property, including new carpeting and innovative technology like cashless wagering at our tables and slot machines. We were the first in market and first in our company to bring that forward. And we continue to look for ways where we can bring new amenities to our customers to drive and enhance the gaming experience at the property. That is why we're in front of you today, is to continue down that path in reimagining our gaming floor. And our proposed plan is to do that through improving the sight lines and continuing to make the experience more comfortable at the gaming devices themselves. What we find is successful is when customers are comfortable at a game and the game is getting the right amount of occupancy in play, it's a better experience for our customers, and it relates to better revenues in return for the Commonwealth as well as our company. And that's what our proposal is looking to do. We're looking to reduce 169 games off our floor to bring our count down to 1532, which will, all those games that we've identified are average age of about 15 years, so they're not our newer cabinets. They're older games. The average occupancy on those games is around 8%, so that's the lowest on any game on our floor. So the play is really, really low on those games, and they're essentially reaching end of life as well. We continue to have tables. We're keeping our count at 60, And on August 31st, I'm excited to inform you that we had our grand reopening of our poker room, which was absent for just over 4 years. So I believe that brings us back to what we want to be, which is a gaming asset that has all amenities available to customers in the greater Harrisburg area.
I think you meant July 31st.
July 31st, excuse me. Yes, thank you for correcting me, Adrian. When you look at smoking specifically, we have currently 528 of those games located in the smoking section, which is approximately 25% of our gaming floor. After the reduction, that count will be at 510 games. So the lion's share of our games still remain in the non-smoking areas of our property, and our table games and poker are also non-smoking. To get into occupancy data, to share with you the trends, what you can see on the average, Fridays and Saturdays, the average Saturday, we're just under 20%, meaning about 8 out of every 10 games is pretty much available for a customer to play. When we hit our peaks, we get up to about 38%, which still means that about 6 out of every 10 are available for customers to play. So we have more than enough capacity, even at the 1532 level, to meet the demands of where our business is at today. When we go to our really high volume days on the next slide, and we talk about the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve, we're reaching 51 and 57% occupancy, but we're never getting above an actual 60% occupancy on our gaming floor at the current count. So we believe by making this reduction, it will still continue to be more than enough to make sure that we have the demand to meet our customers' needs across the gaming floor. And then the final slide I have here is just showing you another view of our occupancy data that shares with you that the highest 10 hours of play, and it shows you that we never really get above 60% on occupancy on our gaming floor. And that also correlates over to the coin-in as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Alex.
Alex, just if I could just make one point, Madam Chair. The staff has been provided with much more detailed information on occupancy and usage, and we ask that those slides, those information be confidential. It's competitively sensitive information. But what we've presented here is more of a high-level overview, but I did want to let you know that the staff does have more detailed slides.
And that information was provided to OEC, and we had no objection to the request for confidentiality.
Thank you, Mr. Crow.
Okay, and now at this point, Alex is going to do a short presentation on skill games and how they're impacting and affecting us around this immediate property. Alex?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Alex Vizda, A-L-E-X.
Do you also want to address, we didn't talk about the...
I'm going to start
okay.
that, yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
A-L-E-X and last name Vizda, H-V-I-Z-D-A. So up on the screen right now is the letter of support from the Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association. They are our partners with horse racing. We work very closely and successfully with them. And they do not have any objection to this, but they did want to call out that they join us in expressing their concern about unregulated and untaxed so-called skill games that have proliferated all around the Commonwealth. Because, of course, the health of the purses is based on the slot revenues. So turning to the next page, as different properties have come before the board over the last couple of years and done these reduction presentations, we've all universally indicated that the skill games are having an impact on our operations. And instead of just giving that anecdotal evidence, we wanted to get some actual hard data. So what we did was we put boots on the ground, and in late June and early July did a survey. We took a 10-mile radius around PNRC, which we're considering our immediate backyard. Now, our territory from which we draw customers is much larger than that, but we said we just want to look at that immediate backyard. So if you look at the map there, you can see the first 5 miles around PNRC, and if you've ever been to PNRC, is mostly farmlands and some homes. So this 10-mile radius took us to about I-83, on the west side and to the outskirts of Jonestown, Annville, Cleona on the east side, and Palmyra and Hershey on the south side. So it does not include the city of Harrisburg. It does not include the city of Lebanon. But within that 10-mile radius, We went out to over 200 different locations, and we found over 325 skill games at over 77 locations just within our own backyard, that 10-mile radius. I've highlighted, so the blue location markers on the map are all the locations that we found them. And then I highlighted and called out the ones that had more than 10 or more skill games in each of them. So there's one that's an exit down from us on 81 called Keystone Club that is literally right in the middle of a miniature golf course. And there's a sign on the door in that middle picture there showing people where to go with the miniature golf course. There was another one, DB Smoke and Vape, in Jonestown that had 10 skill games in it. It was about 100 yards from an elected official's district office. And then First Choice Convenience Store, which also had 10 skill games, which was 2 exits down from us right off of 81. And again, it's a convenience store open to all ages. We also found 2 locations right in Grantville that had, between the 2 of them, 7 skill games. So turning to the next slide, while we did our research within the 10-mile radius, we looked outside of the 10-mile radius at places we were aware of that had these larger locations. So on the West Shore, we found a place called Skill Games Kingdom that had 32 skill games in there, offers complimentary food and beverage, and advertises that they're open 24/7 on the weekends. There was a new one that I'd been alerted to by a friend that opened in the Mechanicsburg area across from a popular brewery. And that center picture there shows that outside the brewery, there's a lawn with seating areas and lawn games that families can hang out at. And if you see the picture in the middle there on the left, there's a kid playing right in front of a toddler playing right in front of this location. And when I walked in there, they offered me that top in the middle there on the right, they offered me a coupon for $10 credits on $20 a play, which is, again, something we do in the casino business by doing these offers. And then the last one is Copies on the Square, which is up in Elizabethville in the far northern end of Dauphin County, which had 10 of them crammed into the back of the general store, convenience store up there. So it's not just the number, the location of the games, but it's also the observed responsible gaming issues. On the next slide. So we found 73 of these stores in grocery or general stores that were selling items geared towards minors, and we found 75 of them in gas or convenience stores that also have items that are geared towards minors. So some of the pictures I pulled out there, that top left one, the one location I walked in, the shopkeeper was there playing the machine while on duty. The one on the top right there is a location near my house next to a daycare center, and the person who was tending the shop was a boy who maybe 12, maybe 14, but certainly not 21 or 20. I walked around the store several times thinking there's got to be an adult in here somewhere, and there wasn't. And there was, I believe, 7 games at that location. The bottom left picture you can see there is some skill games next to kids' backpacks for sales at a location in Palmyra. And then the other 2 just show the signage that these are being advertised with and the ticket redemption units that these are installed. That last one there on the left is interesting because that is a sign on a pole at the Turkey Hill around the corner from my house. And when we did this research back at the end of June and the beginning of July, the Turkey Hills in our area didn't have them in there. I then was alerted that this one near us had it, and I went and checked it out. And since we did this in early July, 4 of the 5 Turkey Hills in our area, so Route 322 in Hershey, the one that's right next to Hershey Park, the one on North Mountain Road, and the one on 22 East in West Tanner Township, all got skill games. And when I Googled Turkey Hill, they're owned by the American subsidiary of a UK conglomerate called EG Group, which is clearly not a mom and pop operation as we've been told these places go. So these are just some of the responsible gaming issues we found, but it goes to show that when we're asking for a 169 reduction, you can see right in our backyard, there's at least 325, and there's now 77 other locations that someone can go and play a physical machine that to many people appears, to me as well, having gone and looked at all these places, appears to be no different than our machines. And so you can see, we believe, and would submit to the board that this is directly affecting our business and why we're here with this reduction today. And with that, I think we will take any questions.
Yes. Open for your questions.
Actually, we're going to hear from OEC before the
of
board
course.
asks questions.
Yes, we do have a few follow-up questions. I know you referenced the reduction in slots, improving your sight lines, but do you have any specific plans for the space that would be created should the relief be granted?
Really, it's more around the comfort of the game and, spreading the games out. I think if you walk our floor today, it's very condensed, and it was condensed for a reason because we needed to get as many units as possible on the floor during the peak volume periods of that property's life cycle. And so today, what we're focused on is more comfort. So I think it's just going to create an area and a space similar to what we did at the Meadows, Hollywood Casino at the Meadows, where it's a better flow for the customer to where they can make their journey through the property, find their machine as fast as possible, get into action, and get to the places they want to go to as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And will this reduction impact any of the remaining slot machines, table games, or wagering kiosks that are on the gaming floor?
It will not.
And will it result in any reduction to the square footage of the gaming floor itself?
It will not.
Will this reduction, if granted, in any way affect the current employees at the facility?
No impact on our employee count.
Okay. And what is your anticipated time frame for completion should this relief be granted?
The projects like this that have this type of move are typically a 60 to 90-day project, so I would say somewhere within that range.
Thank you. No further questions at this time.
Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Manzano Diaz.
Yes, thank you. When your employees went to the various places, did they actually see any children playing on those machines?
No, I went to approximately 175 of them, and I did not see any children playing the machines. It was just the child overseeing the store. And there were children in the stores, but I did not see any actually playing.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Manzano Diaz?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
I actually applaud you for all of the boots on the ground work that you did in establishing the number of skill games in the vicinity.
It was far more than any of us expected. And the fact that these corporations are now getting into it, it's continuing to spread.
Okay. Thank you. Enforcement Council, do you have a presentation?
The Office of Enforcement Counsel does not have a formal presentation. However, we do respectfully request that should the board grant the petition, that the approval be made subject to the conditions as set forth in OEC's answer as filed on July 19th, 2024.
Any questions or comments for Enforcement Council? Is there anything you would like to add, Hollywood?
Nothing else other than just procedurally, we would like to move our presentation into the record and respectfully request that the petition be granted.
Any objection?
No objection.
I do have one other comment.
Yes, ma'am.
1532 is dangerously close to the statutory limit, a minimum of 1,500. So I understand that as you're doing this transition, there might be some times where you might have machines that are less than 1,500 on the floor. And how do you propose to minimize that amount of time where it's less than 1,500?
Yes. So we specifically left our count at 1532 to address that so that we could stay above the cap, or the floor of 1,500. So we anticipate that if there's any time, it would be extremely minimal, and it would be an unforeseen circumstance, like a massive power outage or something along those lines that happen from time to time, but they're extremely rare. So, our anticipation of this project and working through it is that we do not go below the 1,500 game count.
And if I could just add from a regulatory perspective, we've had very detailed discussions about that issue. We understand the requirements of the Act with respect to 1,500 machines, and I can assure you that if we see any problems, if we may temporarily seek permission to go under 1,500, say for a maintenance issue or something of that nature, we will be very, very careful in terms of communicating with all of the areas of the Game Control Board staff to ensure that everyone knows exactly what we're doing, what the expectations are in terms of timing, getting things back online. And again, you're looking at either something very unanticipated from an emergency standpoint or something from a maintenance standpoint. But if any of that ever happens, I can assure you that the lines of communication will be open, they will be continuous, and everything will be well documented and carefully managed. Nobody will be surprised by anything.
Okay, thank you. OEC, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add further. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes this proceeding. This matter will be put before the board for a vote later this morning during the Office of Chief Counsel's portion of the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, this morning is the consideration of the board meeting transcript and minutes from the May 22nd, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the transcript and minutes of that meeting, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the May 22nd, 2024 meeting.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now we will hear from the Office of Chief Counsel.
Our first agenda item relates to final form regulation and a proposed regulation, which will be presented by Assistant Chief Counsel Robert Wood.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As Steve has just stated, there are two regulatory items for the board's consideration this morning. The first one is final form rulemaking numbered 125-247. This provides the regulatory framework for direct bet coupons and interactive gaming progressives and interactive gaming progressives. Additionally, this package will finalize edits to two table games regulations and will create a more uniform re-login requirement relating to iGaming account timeout periods. This rulemaking received no public comments during the appropriate time period or at any point through this morning, and therefore is being offered with only one minor editorial correction from the proposed language. Prior to this morning's meeting, a copy of these regulatory items were provided to the board for their consideration. And if the board does not have any questions this morning, I would ask for a motion to approve final form rulemaking 125-247.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt final form regulation 125-247 regarding direct bet coupons, table rules modifications, interactive gaming player account control, and interactive gaming progressives as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Okay, and now the second item this morning is a proposed rulemaking numbered 125-250. This proposed rulemaking seeks to edit the board's self-exclusion regulations to provide a consistent automatic removal process from self-exclusion lists, with the specific change being to the casino self-exclusion list. Again, the provisions of this editorial proposed rulemaking were provided to the board for your consideration. If there are no questions this morning, I would ask for a motion to approve proposed rulemaking 125-250.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt proposed regulation number 125-250 regarding the self-exclusion program updates as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next item before the board today is a resolution delegating certain authority to the board's Office of Hearings and Appeals. Specifically, Section 403A.6 of the board's regulations authorizes the board to delegate authority to board staff through adoption of a resolution at a public meeting of the board. In November 2023, the board approved a resolution delegating to the Director of the Office of Hearings and Appeals the ability to deny petitions seeking early removal from the board's 1- and 5-year self-exclusion list when the requester's arguments for early removal were deemed to be meritless. As originally drafted, this decision by the Director of Hearings and Appeals was made only after the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer to the request. After following this process for approximately 8 months, it has become apparent that in every case determined by the Director of Office of Hearings and Appeals to be determined to be meritless, the determination was clear upon review of the initial request, and therefore the Office of Enforcement Counsel's need to file an answer to meritless request was an unnecessary step. Today's delegation of authority restates the policy established in November of 2023, removing the requirement that the Office of Enforcement Counsel respond to every request. It is noteworthy that requests denied by the Office of Hearings and Appeals do have the ability to appeal that decision to the board, and that will remain in place. And this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve Resolution 2024-2-OCC delegating authority to board staff as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board today are 4 petitions. One of those petitions was just heard by the board during a public hearing, and the remaining 3 petitions will be decided on the documentary record by agreement of the parties or because the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the requested relief. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with the complete evidentiary record. The first petition before the board today is Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association, LLC's request to modify the gaming floor at the Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. The board just heard from Mountain View on this matter. Penn National currently has a complement of 1,701 slot machines on its gaming floor. The current request is to remove 169 machines, or 9.94% of the machines. It will bring the total slot machine complement down to 1,532. After review by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement's Financial Investigations Unit, the Office of Enforcement Counsel does not object to the requested relief, but proposes that the board impose several conditions. There are also requests by both parties to maintain certain information as confidential, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant Mountain View Thoroughbred Racing Association's LLC's petition to modify the gaming floor at Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, subject to the conditions that will be outlined in the board's order. I further move that the parties' request for confidentiality be granted.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter before the board today is a joint petition from American Wagering, Inc., William Hill U.S. Holdco, Inc., Digital Holdco, LLC, and Caesars Entertainment, Inc. The parties are requesting a change in control of American Wagering, Inc. American Wagering, Inc. was issued a sports wagering operator license in May of 2020 and provides sports wagering services to Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. Caesars Entertainment, Inc. intends to facilitate a restructuring to transfer ownership of certain digital property rights to one of its subsidiaries, specifically Digital Holdco, LLC. The petitioner's proposed transaction would result in a full and total contribution of all ownership assets of William Hill U.S. Holdco, Inc. from Caesars Entertainment to Digital Holdco, LLC. As a result, Holdco will become the indirect parent of American Wagering and Caesars Entertainment, Inc.'s corporate structure. Holdco's acquisition of William Hill U.S. will not result in any change of ownership of Caesars Entertainment, Inc., nor will it change direct ownership of American Wagering, Inc. by William Hill U.S. Effectively, this is simply a corporate restructuring, but it is a change in ownership. All necessary applications for licensure pertaining to the transfer have been filed with the Bureau of Licensing, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant American Wagering, Inc., William Hall U.S. Holdco, Inc., Digital Holdco, LLC, and Caesars Entertainment, Inc.'s joint petition for approval of a change in ownership and certain other relief as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board is a request for removal from the self-exclusion list. On July 14th, 2014, an individual with the initials DB placed himself on the list, choosing the lifetime self-exclusion option. On May 30th, 2024, DB filed a request for removal from the list. DB included with the petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that an assessment of DB was performed and that problem gambling treatment was not recommended. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer stating it had no objection to DB's request, despite the petition being filed prior to the 10-year mark required by the board regulations, as since the matter before the board now, or since today's date is more than 10 years since his placement on the list, OEC no longer objects to the request, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant DB's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The final petition before the board today is another petition requesting removal from the self-exclusion list. On June 12, 2013, an individual with the initials JZ, not DJZ, placed himself on the list, choosing the lifetime self-exclusion option. On June 11th, 2024, JZ filed a request for removal from the list. JZ included in his petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider, confirming that an assessment of JZ was performed and that problem gambling treatment was not recommended. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer stating it had no objection to JZ's request for removal from the self-exclusion list, as more than 10 years had passed since his placement on the list. He submitted all the required documentation and has no known violations of the self-exclusion program, and therefore this matter is ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant Jay-Z's petition for removal from the self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, presenting withdrawals and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman.
Good morning, Commissioners. The next matter before the board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and entities: Wesley Woodruff, John Enriquez, iGaming Cloud, Inc., Mirlid A.S., Sky City Entertainment Group Limited, Claudio Caruana, Kietel Asan, Nicholas Adel Recruits, Peter Nylander, GIG Spinco Inc., Hervé Schlosser, James Coxon, Matuz Juracek, Richard Carter, Tomas Juracek, GIG Platform Holdco Limited, David Lazzarato, Richard Flint, Marvin Sanderson, Simon Nichols, Ka Yung Chan, James Griffin, Maria Vulo, Michael Regan, Joseph Asher, Gernhardt Beer Coil Cleaning, High Five Games Corporate Revocable Trust, Blue Aquario Prima SPA, Richard Livingstone, FROS Ventures AB, JOVB Investment AB, Hideo Yoshizawa, Yukio Sugino, Shione Kinoshita, Yukio Tsukai, and Edward Couture. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board chooses to grant these requests, in every case, it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester, and these matters are all now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Next before the board for consideration are 7 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. Additionally, the persons involved have each been notified that the board would be considering their matter today and that each would have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any of the persons who are the subject of one of these reports and recommendations would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. Kelsey Cook is the first report and recommendation before the board today. Ms. Cook currently holds a gaming level 2 employee occupation permit and worked as a table games dealer at Hollywood Casino at the Meadows. On February 2, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint to suspend Ms. Cook's G2 permit after receiving notice she had been charged with drug-related offenses, including a felony, a DUI, and other driving violations. A hearing in this matter was held on April 18, 2024. OEC appeared offering testimony and documentary evidence, and although receiving proper notice, Ms. Cook failed to appear at the hearing and it was held in her absence. A report and recommendation was issued recommending that Ms. Cook's Gaming Level 2 employee occupation permit be suspended, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Kelsey Cook's Gaming Level 2 employee occupation permit be suspended.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Brian Price is the next report and recommendation before the board today. Mr. Price had been issued a gaming employee occupation permit and worked as a slot technician at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. On February 24, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for emergency suspension of Mr. Price's permit after receiving notice that he had been criminally charged with felony and misdemeanor offenses. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Mr. Price's permit. A hearing in this matter was held in March of 2024. OEC appeared at the hearing providing testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Price initially failed to appear, but contacted OHA on the date of the hearing, stating he had just received the notice and asked for a new hearing date. A hearing was then held in April of 2024, where Mr. Price appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearings showed that Mr. Price was in possession of several prohibited firearms and firearm accessories and was charged with firearm violations under New Jersey's law. Mr. Price testified that he was a firearms instructor and range safety officer in Pennsylvania at the time. He applied for a pistol purchasing permit in New Jersey where he resided. Mr. Price further testified that he has not worked since November 26, 2022 due to a work injury that he suffered on the job and does not know when he will go back to work because of that and other medical issues. Consequently, the report and recommendation issued recommends that the emergency suspension of Mr. Price's permit remain in effect as the charges remain pending. This matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the suspension of Brian Price's gaming employee occupational permit remain in effect.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation pertaining to David Pistorius' request for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. The underlying facts in this matter are that on April 29, 2019, while patronizing Rivers Casino Pittsburgh, Mr. Pistorius took a $700 voucher that was left in a slot machine by another patron and redeemed the voucher. He pleaded guilty to a theft-related offense, was sentenced to 1 year probation, was ordered to pay restitution, and was permanently banned from the casino. Consequently, on October 2, 2019, the board issued an order placing Mr. Pistorius on the list. Mr. Pistorius violated his self-exclusion on one occasion in September 2021. On February 28, 2024, Mr. Pistorius filed a petition requesting removal from the list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to the request as it was earlier than the 5-year removal period dictates. A hearing in this matter was held in May of 2024. Mr. Pistorius failed to appear for the hearing. OEC appeared and moved to dismiss the petition based on Mr. Pistorius' absence. Thereafter, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the petition be denied, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that David Pistorius remain on the involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next two report and recommendations stem from a similar set of facts and both pertain to requests for removal from the various self-exclusion lists by individuals of the initials ME and RF. I will recite one set of facts for both matters and then request motions for each. And I believe RF is present. Both ME and RF filed petitions seeking early removal from the casino, interactive gaming, VGT, and fantasy contest self-exclusion lists. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to the requests in each matter, and thereafter, the Director of Office of Hearings and Appeals issued a decision order denying ME and RF's request, stating each was ineligible for removal because it did not meet the requirement that 10 years had elapsed since their placement on the lists. Both ME and RF appealed the decision within 10 days as required, and a hearing was held on these matters on May 1st and April 30th, 2024, respectively. OEC appeared at the hearings and presented testimony and documentary evidence in both matters. ME and RF appeared with their attorney at their hearings and both testified in their matters. Evidence and testimony presented at ME's hearing showed that on November 22nd, 2022, ME had properly filled out the exclusion forms, signing all required acknowledgments and placing herself on the casino, interactive gaming, and video gaming terminal exclusion lists, choosing the lifetime period for each, and also placing herself on the fantasy contest exclusion list for a period of 50 years. ME testified that she enrolled on the exclusion list after learning that her partner, RF, had a gambling problem. ME stated that she felt she needed to place herself on the list to both protect her and the partner. ME testified that since her enrollment, her partner has learned that a medication he was taking caused impulsive behavior that led to his gambling problem, and he has now stopped taking that medication and become less impulsive. ME further testified that she has been diagnosed with ADHD and that prior to her being prescribed medication for the same, she had difficulty with reading, both comprehension and understanding directions. ME's partner, RF, also testified to her decision for placement on the exclusion list, stating that he believes she panicked when she learned of the issues he was having with gambling and made an abrupt decision. ME also presented testimony from her therapist, who is a certified gaming counselor, and her therapist indicated she does not see ME as a risk for problem gambling. Evidence and testimony presented at the hearing for RF showed that on November 22nd, 2022, RF also properly filled out all the exclusion forms, signing the required acknowledgments and placing himself on the casino, interactive gaming, and video gaming exclusion lists for choosing the lifetime exclusion for each, and then doing fantasy contest exclusion for a period of 50 years as well. RF testified that he was feeling out of control with his gambling during a time period when he was taking paroxetine, a medication prescribed to him to treat anxiety. He stated that he experienced side effects from the medication, which consists of impulsivity, agitation, and abnormal thoughts and behavior. He further indicated that he did not know at the time that these side effects were being caused by the medication until he researched and discovered that the symptoms he was feeling were possible side effects of the paroxetine. RF stated that since he has stopped taking the medication, he does not have the same urge to gamble as he experienced while on the medication. RF also presented the testimony from a coworker about behavioral changes the coworker noticed in RF while on the medication, noting he was agitated, impulsive, and on edge. RF's therapist, also the certified gaming counselor, testified to her treatment of RF for problem gambling and anxiety, stating that she had numerous sessions with RF, that he's been very compliant with and taken his counseling seriously, and seriously believes that he can return to gaming safely, and views that gaming would be less harmful impact on his social life caused by his inability to visit casinos. Thereafter, on July 30th, RF, through his attorney, filed a motion to reopen the record, asking the board to consider two additional documents, specifically a letter to the editor published in the Journey of Psychotherapy and Psychosomatics, wherein it talks about an individual who, while taking paroxetine, started gambling, and that desire to do so increased over time. The second document is a letter from RF's therapist, who reiterates her testimony from the hearing. After hearing all the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued in each matter recommending both ME and RF's request for removal from the various self-exclusion lists be denied. ME and RF both filed exceptions to the hearing officer's recommendation. These matters are all now ready for the board's consideration, the first being the motion to reopen the record in RF's matter, and then ultimately a motion on the two individual reports and recommendations.
For the record, the motion to reopen the record was granted by myself, and the record that the board received included those two documents. So before we proceed, RF, would you like to be heard by the board?
Yes, please.
Can you also please stand and be sworn in by the court reporter?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, I do.
You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'll try not to take up too much of anybody's time.
That's okay. Can you put the mic closer?
Oh, test. Is that good? Yeah. Okay. Well, good morning. I would like to start off by thanking the board for the opportunity to speak today on this matter. Between May and November of 2022, I was on paroxetine as prescribed by my general practitioner. During this time period, my artificially intensified gambling behavior and my decision-making abilities were unknowingly impacted by paroxetine's side effects. These deceptive side effects, which included impulsivity, agitation, disassociated feelings, and abnormal thinking, all gradually became more severe until they peaked in November of 2022. When my partner and I abruptly self-excluded for lifetime in November 2022, we were unaware of how my traumatic paroxetine experience negatively impacted both of our decisions. This resulted in us unknowingly having incomplete information about how paroxetine was harming me. This has all since been confirmed by many reputable medical sources and professionals in the form of both hearing testimony and evidence exhibits. When arranging to speak at today's meeting, it was confirmed the two most recent evidence exhibits filed with the motion to reopen the record would be sent to the board for their review. I believe both evidence exhibits are critical because they reinforce everything summarized in the previously filed exceptions. Exhibit A was a peer-reviewed medical journal that explicitly states how someone else also unfortunately experienced paroxetine-induced pathological gambling. Exhibit B was a professional opinion letter on this matter from the International Certified Gambling Counselor who participated in our hearings. This letter provides further background on the extraordinary circumstances caused by paroxetine and states that I do not have a gambling problem. It also mentions how my social life has been negatively impacted due to being isolated from my social circle, which really this has been the most difficult part of all of this, as anybody could understand. Imagine how you would feel if you discovered after all this time that you decided to self-exclude while you were unknowingly suffering from unforeseen prescription medication side effects. If I had known in November 2022 what I know today about what paroxetine was actually doing to me, I never would have self-excluded because I do not have a gambling problem. I think we can all agree that life is too short and that correcting a mistake should be allowed, especially when there is an abundance of evidence to support doing so. In conclusion, I ask the board to evaluate these petition dockets with compassion, understanding, and an open mind. Thank you for your time.
Any questions or comments for RF? Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, do you have any questions or comments for RF?
No, not at this time.
Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much, RF.
Thank you.
Being as it's first on the agenda, I would request a motion on ME's petition for removal.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that ME's petition be denied and she remain on a self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Now moving on to RAF.
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearing and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that RAF's petition be denied and he remain on the self-exclusion list.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Manzano-Diaz?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you for appearing.
Thank you for having me.
I'll wait till the live feed goes back up. Next before the board is a report and recommendation stemming from a request to recover funds confiscated while on the self-exclusion list. As the board is aware, when a self-excluded person is found in Pennsylvania casinos, the act dictates that any winnings possessed by the person be confiscated from them and used to support compulsive and problem gambling programs. On February 27, 2024, J.R. filed a petition requesting recovery of funds confiscated from him. A hearing in this matter was held on May 7, 2024. The Office of Enforcement Counsel appeared and presented testimony on documentary evidence. J.R. appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearing showed that on June 12, 2022, J.R. completed all the necessary self-exclusion paperwork, choosing the one-year exclusion period. On February 22, 2024, erroneously believing he was no longer on the list, J.R. entered Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack, gamed at a slot machine, winning a jackpot in the amount of $1,296.81. Upon discovering he was still on the list, Harrah's personnel confiscated the winnings. He was evicted from the property. However, on February 23, 2024, J.R. then took the steps to remove himself from the list. After hearing all the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that J.R.'s petition be denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board reject the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that J.R.'s petition be granted.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board is another request to recover monies confiscated while on the self-exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer and objection to this request. By way of background, on October 29, 2018, TW placed himself on the board's self-exclusion list for a period of 5 years. On February 9, 2024, TW entered and gamed at Parks Casino while on the self-exclusion list, which was his third self-exclusion violation. TW bought in at a baccarat table for $280. Upon realizing that TW was on the list, Park staff confiscated $675 from him, and he was charged with defiant trespass. Thereafter, on February 14, 2024, TW filed his request for removal from the list. A hearing in this matter was held in May of 2024. TW failed to appear for the hearing. OEC appeared at the hearing and moved to dismiss the petition based on TW's absence. Subsequently, the hearing officer issued a report and recommendation recommending that TW's petition be granted in part and that he be allowed to recover the buy-in amount of $280 as that amount was not winnings. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that TW's petition be granted in part and denied in part.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
That concludes the matter of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Robert, Chad, and Steve. We will now have the Bureau of Licensing matters presented by the Director of the Bureau of Licensing, Sean Hannon. Sean?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The first licensing matter for your consideration is the renewal of a sports wagering certificate for Mount Airy No. 1 LLC, doing business as Mount Airy Casino Resort. The Bureau of Licensing, Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement, and Office of Sports Wagering Operations has completed its review of the documents, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the renewal of Category 2 licensee, Mount Airy No. 1 LLC's sports wagering certificate.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the sports wagering certificate renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next licensing matter for your consideration is the Video Gaming Terminal Operator License Renewal for Marquee by Penn LLC, doing business as Marquee by Penn Entertainment. The company was formed in Delaware on April 27, 2017, with its principal place of business in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania. Marquee by Penn LLC operates and maintains video gaming terminals on the premises of establishment licensees in Pennsylvania. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation of the company, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask the board consider the order to renew the video game terminal operator license for Marquee by Penn LLC.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal operator license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, we have consideration of interactive gaming and sports wagering manufacturer licenses for Every Matrix Americas Corporation, doing business as Every Matrix. Formed in Delaware on August 4th, 2020, Every Matrix principal place of business is in Milford, Delaware. The company offers a player's account management platform, a casino aggregator, and fully managed sportsbook software to interactive gaming and sports wagering operators. Every Matrix was granted interim authorization on January 8th, 2024. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. And the approval is ready for your consideration. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you first consider the order to approve Every Matrix for an interactive gaming manufacturer license.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the interactive gaming manufacturer license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And next would be consideration of Every Matrix for a sports wagering manufacturer license.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next is consideration of conditional video gaming terminal establishment licenses for CHR Corp., doing business as Rudders Store Number 99, and Raceway Management Company, doing business as Onvo Travel Plaza, High Ridge. The board may conditionally license an establishment provided the applicant has never been convicted of a felony, is current on state taxes, has submitted a complete application, and has not been convicted of a gambling law violation. A preliminary review of these applicants indicates that they meet this criteria. Please note that these are strictly conditional approvals. Final approval will be based on the applicant meeting all the eligibility criteria provided in the statute. A final eligibility determination will follow investigations and site inspections by the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement. I have provided you with draft orders and asked the board first consider a motion to approve the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license for CHR Corp., doing business as Rudders Store Number 99, located at 1609 Scalp Avenue, Johnstown.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next is consideration of Raceway Management Company, Incorporated, doing business as Onvo Travel Plaza, High Ridge, located at 1297 Keystone Boulevard in Pottsville.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next, there are principal and key employee licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 32 principals and 4 key employees. I ask the board consider the order approving these licenses.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the principal and key employee licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next are principal and key employee temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary credentials to 5 principals and 19 key employees. I ask the board consider the order approving these credentials.
The Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Additionally, for your consideration are gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 630 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits, and 214 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the Board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next, there is a recommendation of denial for 3 gaming and 3 non-gaming applicants. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with an order addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the Board consider the order approving these denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each matter.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board deny the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I've provided the Board with 2 key employees, 20 gaming, and 7 non-gaming applicants. I ask the Board consider the orders approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the withdrawals of key employee gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 7 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the Board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
That concludes Bureau of Licensing matters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Next is the Office of Enforcement Counsel, Cyrus Petrie. Cyrus?
Good morning, Chair, members of the Board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 19 matters today for the Board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 1 consent agreement, 2 suspensions, 4 revocations, and 12 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the Board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and iGaming manufacturer licensee, Evolution US LLC. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Thomas Monahan. Representatives for Evolution are present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and that any non-attorney witness please stand and be sworn.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Lynn Kaufman, Lynnne Kaufman, with Cooper Levinson. I have with me Ankita Patel. She is the head of legal North America for Evolution, and Jeff Patchen, who is head of compliance North America for Evolution.
With the non-attorneys,
sworn
please.
in.
Yes, and also state and spell your names, please.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Yes. My name is Jeff Patchen, Jeffpatchen.
And Ms. Patel?
And I'm Ankita Patel, Ankita Patel.
Enforcement Counsel, you may proceed.
Yes, good morning, Thomas Monahan, Monaghan, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This matter involves a male individual who was able to gain authorized access to the Evolution Live Dealer Studio. On or about January 19th, 2023, the individual attempted to open the entrance doors but was unsuccessful. He then knocked on the glass door and an employee pressed the release button, allowing the individual to enter. The individual entered the reception area and an employee appeared to direct the individual towards the Evolution Studio entrance security speed gates. A security officer approached the speed gates and allowed the individual entry, wherein he subsequently entered the restrooms next to the speed gate area. The individual exited the restrooms, briefly took a seat in the meeting lobby area, got up, and briefly went into a meeting room before exiting out of the door into the hallway, where he walked around. He then returned to a different entrance door and was able to enter without providing a fingerprint scan. He returned to the security speed gates and followed closely behind an employee and was able to pass through the speed gates by walking in immediately behind her. He proceeded to walk past the security officer who was sitting at the desk and down the team member hallway and into the locker room area where there were multiple female employees. The individual stood in the locker room common area and appeared to inappropriately touch himself and also made inappropriate comments to the female employees. He then entered a handicap accessible dressing room, at which time all the female employees hurriedly exited the locker room and proceeded down the team member hallway. The individual exited the locker room, proceeded down the team hallway, entered a team manager's office in the hallway, and sat at a desk. Security was alerted to the issue, and the security officer entered the office and escorted the individual out. The individual was in the studio for a total of approximately 17 minutes before he was escorted from the building by security. The incident was reported to the Philadelphia Police Department. However, the identity of the individual was never obtained. Pursuant to Evolution's PGCB approved internal controls, all visitors must register with reception and show ID to the office coordinator or security guard, receive a distinguishing visitor badge, and are required to wear that badge around their neck while they're on Evolution's premises. OEC now requests that the board approve this consent agreement and stipulation of settlement entered between the parties. The terms of the settlement include Evolution pay a civil penalty in the amount of $7,500 to the board within 5 days of the board's order approving this consent agreement. Also, within 5 days, Evolution shall pay to the board $2,500 for costs incurred by the Office of Enforcement Counsel and other related staff in connections with this matter. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them at this time.
Ms. Kaufman, would you and your clients like to address the board?
Yes, please. Thank you for the opportunity. We agree with the facts as set forth in the proposed consent order and acknowledge that there were significant security breaches based on a combination of human error, failure to follow procedures, and it was also exacerbated by a layout that we've now realized had room for improvement, which we have done, to further ensure the safety of our employees and the security of the gaming floor and of the gaming-related areas. I do note that when we talk about the entrance into the live studio, the gentleman was in the Evolution live studio, but was not able to and did not access the gaming floor or the gaming-related areas. Of course, this is still a terrible breach. I just wanted to factually lay that out. A lot of companies say that they are committed to their employees' safety, and I know they are. But Evolution's business model as an internet gaming company is very unusual because its business model is based on believing that humans are better to present games than virtual people. And that can't happen. They can't value that unless you provide safety and security, which is why outlined in the proposed consent order, there is a list of remedial measures, corrective measures, and just extra measures that we have taken. I would just like to briefly also mention a few other measures that are not stated in the consent order, but also demonstrates Evolution's commitment. First of all, Evolution did take very quick action after the incident. The order states that they changed security companies in October of 2023, which was significantly after the incident, but that is because they took immediate action with the security company that they were using, contacted the owners, made demands that the security guards be trained, that the security guard that committed many of the breaches never returned to Evolution, and that the layout of the office be better designed for security. That was immediately implemented. Additionally, the game presenters that were work in the studio also were all contacted that day, and the ones that were there that day. And over the next few days, they were all spoken to, first of all, obviously to express concern about security, but also to raise their awareness to not breach any procedures. They now put a extra security podium that you see right when you get off of the elevator, and the security guard can see people coming in from the elevator. And before they even could implement that, they put a temporary extra security guard there, just to really have action taken immediately. I want to say that this occurred during a shift change, and some of the training of the security guards has been focused on paying attention during a shift change. During a shift change, there are approximately 40 employees leaving and 40 employees coming. Since this incident has occurred and these measures have been implemented, there has been no other unauthorized access, and also Evolution has not had another occasion of unauthorized access in any of its studios.
Any questions or comments? So Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Not at this time.
Any other questions or comments at this time? I'd like to know what happened to the employee that actually buzzed this person in.
So the employee that buzzed him in, he was verbally reprimanded, but since then he has been terminated just for other reasons unrelated to this incident.
He was verbally reprimanded. Was there additional training for that person?
All the employees went through additional training on how important it is and what role they play in ensuring security within the facility. Obviously, it's a top priority for us to make sure our employees are safe and they feel comfortable coming to work, and the security of the building itself. So I think the measures and the changes we've made will prevent this moving forward. And I'm not sure if any of you have visited a studio. I'd encourage you, if you'd like to come visit Philadelphia, or if you're ever in New Jersey, you can visit our studios in AC. But it is, an office area. And when we say studio, it's not as if you're walking right into an area where there's sensitive gaming activities occurring. So this gentleman was mainly in the common areas, and there was multiple failures, as Lynn pointed out, during the incident. But since then, and we've addressed all those things, and we've always are looking to make improvements to our processes as we identify gaps or issues throughout the operation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon, that the board approve the consent agreement between Office of Enforcement Counsel and Evolution US LLC as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the agenda consists of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel file complaints seeking the suspension or revocation of permits or registrations previously issued by the board. The complaint in each matter has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Juan Sanchez, SANCHE, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Larry Best. Mr. Best was previously employed as a games presenter at Evolution US LLC. Mr. Best failed to disclose to the board that the Philadelphia Police Department arrested him and criminally charged him for 2 incidents that occurred on the same date for kidnapping, physical assaulting, attempting to rape, and threatening his former partner and her family, including at times with a gun. Mr. Best pleaded guilty to a felony offense, aggravated assault, as well as misdemeanor offenses, possession of an instrument of crime, simple assault, terroristic threats, and false imprisonment. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Larry Best.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the suspension of Larry Best's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good morning, Sarah Colasar, Kolesar, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Danielle Claypool. Ms. Claypool was previously employed as a table games dealer at Mount Airy Casino. Ms. Claypool was present on Mount Airy property when her alleged boyfriend picked her up from the property and attempted to engage in a verbal altercation with casino employees in the parking lot, and then crashed into a Mount Airy operations truck that was being driven by casino personnel and then fleeing the scene. Ms. Claypool refused to cooperate with the investigation and impeded Mount Airy's and the local police investigation. In addition, the respondent falsified documentation related to absences from her employment. Ms. Claypool was terminated for her actions and is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Danielle Claypool.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Danielle Claypool's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michael Rowland, ROL A&D with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Next on the agenda is a request to revoke the Gaming Level 2 employee occupation permit issued to Tina Jenkins, who was previously employed by Rivers Casino Philadelphia as a player services agent. Rivers Philadelphia reported to the Bureau of Casino Compliance details of an internal investigation regarding a violation of procedures surrounding the issuance of match play coupons. In order to receive match play coupons, a patron must present their player's card and identification to verify they are the person receiving the match play. However, Ms. Jenkins failed to check identification and issued match play coupons for multiple player cards not belonging to the patron. An investigation confirmed that Ms. Jenkins received monetary tips and food in exchange for issuing the match play coupons. When questioned, she admitted to violating the policy and receiving the compensation. Pursuant to board regulations, Gaming Level 2 occupation permit holders are prohibited from accepting tips or gratuities. Ms. Jenkins was terminated for a position at Rivers Philadelphia for her actions. She is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the Gaming Level 2 occupation permit issued to Tina Jenkins.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the revocation of Tina Jenkins' Gaming Level 2 employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Sarah Groody, Groody, with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Kari Nevels. Mr. Nevels was previously employed as a floor technician at Presque Isle Downs Casino. While he was working, Mr. Nevels was caught stealing money from a wallet and was terminated from his position. A patron reported her missing wallet, which contained approximately $50. A review of surveillance reveals Mr. Nevels picking the wallet up and disposing of it in the garbage can, to which he also admitted. When the wallet was retrieved from the garbage can, there was no money inside. Mr. Nevels was terminated for his actions. He was criminally charged with theft of property, and the disposition of those charges is unreported. He has not notified the board of the charges, and he is not currently employed in the Pennsylvania gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming registration issued to Kari Nevels.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Kari Neville's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the board. Andrea Roberts, ROBERTS, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Jabriel Galloway. Mr. Galloway was previously employed as a custodian 1 at Valley Forge Casino Resort. Mr. Galloway has multiple arrests since the issuance of his non-gaming registration. At the time the complaint for suspension was filed, Mr. Galloway had 4 pending criminal cases, which included 4 felony charges, 8 misdemeanor charges, and 1 summary offense. Since the filing of the complaint for suspension, all of the pending charges have been resolved, which included Mr. Galloway pleading guilty to 2 counts of burglary, not adapted for overnight accommodation, no person present, a second-degree felony. Mr. Galloway is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Jabriel Galloway.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the suspension of Jabriel Galloway's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Joshua Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez was previously employed as a table games dealer at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Rivers Casino Philadelphia terminated Mr. Gonzalez's employment for theft because Mr. Gonzalez gave extra change to the same female patron on 11 different incidences over a period of 5 days. This resulted in a $365 loss at the casino. He is not currently employed in Pennsylvania's gaming industry. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Joshua Gonzalez.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the revocation of Joshua Gonzalez gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals who are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of their inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the request to place Gregory W. Brown Jr. on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Brown left a 13-year-old minor unattended in a vehicle outside Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia for approximately 39 minutes while he entered the casino to wager at the sportsbook. Pennsylvania State Police and the Philadelphia Police Department were notified and responded, but no criminal charges were filed. Live permanently banned Mr. Brown Jr. from their casino as a result of this incident. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Gregory W. Brown Jr. on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Gregory W. Brown Jr. to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next Two matters on the agenda are related and are requests to place Dylan Wade Rogers and Kaylin Sparango on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I will read one set of facts and then request that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. Mr. Rogers, Ms. Sparango, and two companions were ejected from Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia but refused to leave. Pennsylvania State Police were notified and responded. Ms. Sparango received a verbal warning after making threats towards PSP. When Mr. Rogers escalated the situation, PSP informed him he was under arrest. Mr. Rogers resisted arrest, and a physical altercation occurred involving PSP, Mr. Rogers, and Ms. Sparango. Mr. Rogers and Ms. Sparango were both arrested and criminally charged. The disposition of the charges against Mr. Rogers could not be determined by publicly available records. Ms. Sparango pled guilty to terroristic threats, a misdemeanor of the first degree, and simple assault, a misdemeanor of the second degree, as a result of the incident. Live permanently evicted Mr. Rogers and Ms. Sparango for their actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Dylan Rogers on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Dylan Rogers to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Kaylin Sparango on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Caitlin Sparango to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the request to place Barbara Strauss on the involuntary exclusion list. Ms. Strauss left 4 minors aged 3, 6, 7, and 10 years of age unattended for approximately 25 minutes in a vehicle located on the 4th floor of the parking garage of Harrah's Philadelphia Casino. Ms. Strauss entered the casino, gamed at one slot machine, and ordered food from the market food court. The temperature that day was 86 degrees and the vehicle was running. Pennsylvania State Police were notified and responded, but no criminal charges were filed. Harrah's permanently banned Ms. Strauss as a result of this incident. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Barbara Strauss on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Barbara Strauss to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the request to place Talbot White on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. White was present at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and gamed at roulette. Mr. White ignored requests to stop smoking at the table and then spilled a bottle of beer. Mr. White was asked to leave the table, which he refused to do, and began making verbal threats. Mr. White put his hand against the pit shift supervisor's face and pushed him, and then swung his arm at a security officer with a closed fist. Pennsylvania State Police were notified, responded, and criminally charged Mr. White. Mr. White pled guilty to harassment, subject other to physical contact, a summary offense, as a result of this incident. Harrah's permanently banned Mr. White as a result of this incident. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board place Talbot White on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Talbot White to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's adopted.
Again, Andrea Roberts, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the request to place Daniel Williams on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Williams left 2 minors, approximately 12 and 13 years of age, unattended for approximately 31 minutes in a vehicle in the parking lot at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Mr. Williams and an unidentified female entered the casino where they picked up a gift from the promotions desk and gamed at a slot machine for approximately 26 minutes. When Mr. Williams and the unidentified female returned to the vehicle, they failed to identify themselves to security, entered the vehicle, and left Live's premises. Pennsylvania State Police and the Philadelphia Police Department were notified, but Mr. Williams left before they arrived. No criminal charges were filed. Live permanently banned Mr. Williams as a result of this incident. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Daniel Williams on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Danielle Williams to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's adopted.
Good morning again, Sarah Grudy with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the petition to place Nazir Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Johnson was caught cheating at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. Specifically, Mr. Johnson capped his wagers on multiple occasions, which resulted in him being paid out money to which he was not entitled. Mr. Johnson has only paid a small portion of restitution. He was permanently evicted from Harrah's and was criminally charged with theft of services, which is awaiting a plea according to the publicly available docket. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Nazir Johnson on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Nazir Johnson to the Pennsylvania Game and Control Board involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thomas Monahan, once again with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a petition to place Eric Solaris on the board's interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Solaris attempted to make 23 separate deposits for a total of $4,250 on the BetMGM interactive gaming platform using 8 different debit cards that belonged to other individuals. Mr. Solaris was successful in 5 of the deposits for a total of $1,000. BetMGM permanently closed Mr. Solaris' interactive gaming account due to his actions. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests the board place Eric Solaris on the board's interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Eric Solaris to the PGCB involuntary interactive exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Once again, Juan Sanchez with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Michael Dewberry on the board's involuntary exclusion list. Michael Dewberry engaged in physical altercations and disorderly conduct, possessed suspected illegal drugs, and was found to be intoxicated at Live Casino Pittsburgh, Rivers Casino Pittsburgh, and Hollywood Casino at the Meadows. He has been evicted from all of these facilities for his actions. He pleaded guilty to a summary offense, disorderly conduct, for one incident, and was arrested for drug possession for another incident, which disposition is unknown. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Michael Dewberry on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Michael Dewberry to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Once again, Juan Sanchez with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The final 3 matters on the agenda are related and are requests to place Laquan Bungie, William Hicks, and Moya Malone on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I will read one set of facts and then request that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. William Hicks, Laquan Bungie, and Moya Malone entered Harrah's Philadelphia Casino gaming floor with 2 other patrons. Mr. Hicks refused to provide identification to Harrah's staff. All 3 individuals refused to leave and were arrested after they verbally and physically assaulted both casino staff and Pennsylvania state troopers. Mr. Hicks pleaded guilty to a second-degree misdemeanor, simple assault. Mr. Bungie pleaded guilty to a third-degree misdemeanor offenses, defiant trespass and disorderly conduct. Ms. Malone pleaded guilty to summary offenses, harassment and disorderly conduct. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Laquan Bungie on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Lackwang Bundy to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place William Hicks on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of William Hicks to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Moya Malone on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Moya Malone to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus. The last item on the agenda for today is public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board? Having no one step forward, that concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024, at 10 a.m. at this location. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Ralston moves that we adjourn.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.